Comedian Ricky Gervais has shared a special message to the woke groups of people who are often easily offended and don't know what it's like to have a sense of humour. He posted on X, "Thanks to everyone who complained about this trailer and even signed a petition to get Armageddon removed from Netflix. You helped make it the most watched special in the world." And I'm sure they absolutely loved hearing that. But joining us from Dallas, Texas is comedian Alex Stein. Alex, great to be with you. Look, Ricky Gervais is just brilliant in his ability to be fearless and funny as he trolls these woke groups of people who try to cancel him. But what's it like being a comedian in 2024?
Well, I mean, people try to say it's bad or it's hard because you're always going to get canceled, which that is a possibility. But it's kind of funny how this worked out for Ricky Gervais, is how this bad attention helped it be the #1 trending thing on Netflix, or at least the thing talked about. And it's similar to what happened with Kristi Noem, who was a governor here in America, who was trying to sell a book and talked about how she killed her dog and how she met Kim Jong-un. She lied in this, she basically lied in her own documentary. But that negative publicity ended up being positive, and she ended up on the New York Times bestseller. So there's this weird thing where hate, even though it's negative attention, I guess Roger Stone said it best. It's better for people to be talking bad about you than not talking about you at all. So it just comes with the territory. If you're going to be a comedian or politician, you're probably going to get some sort of kickback.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's take a look at Ricky Gervais in that Netflix stand-up.
Well, I am woke now, and I can prove it. Here you go. I love illegal immigrants. Yeah, sue me. Now, sometimes I go down to Dover for the day, right? And I look out, right? I look for a boat, and I see a dinghy with about 60 of them, and I go over here, like, right? And I pull them into shore, and I go, "Women and children first." They go, "There are no women and children." "Just you lads, is it? Just come on, lads. Come on, lads."
I love him. Alex, does it spark some important conversations as well?
Oh my God. I think Ricky Gervais, when he hosts the Academy Awards or the Golden Globes, whatever award shows that he hosts are always the most memorable thing because he doesn't pull any punches. And this is the thing, is most people, we try to break everything down and right or left. Most people are in the middle. And I think Ricky Gervais plays that very well, that he's really in the middle. Like illegal immigration, it's an issue. People are taking social services from Americans here in America, and it's happening all over the world in Europe. So he's just kind of calling out what's obvious. And that's the thing, is really in this day and age, if you just point out what's actually happening, it's so absurd that it's comedy in itself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't really have to create anything. You can just basically regurgitate what's happening, and it's either you got to laugh or cry about it. And Ricky Gervais makes people laugh.
Comedian Stephen Merchant is among other comedians who have been speaking out against cancel culture. He just recently told The Observer magazine that the left is policing comedy with sensitivities that seem out of proportion to the joke. Do you agree with that sentiment? I'm sure you do, but how important, I suppose, are digital shows and podcasts as a platform for comedy and also free speech?
Well, obviously podcasts and, now people creating their own sketches, that is so important. But this is a very serious thing. When you talk about Stephen Merchant, you talk about Ricky Gervais, they created The Office. The Office was, spun off here in America. That was the #1 show. And Michael Scott, the lead character, the David Brent character, was played by a guy by the name of Steve Carell, who's one of the best comedic actors in America. But he even said that if they tried to make The Office today, they could not do it because it would be too controversial. And yes, The Office was a little controversial, but it wasn't that controversial. And just imagine, we live in such a political correct nightmare that The Office could theoretically not be made today. So what's sad is that the boundaries have gotten so tight, it's almost impossible not to cross them.
Does that worry you looking ahead?
I mean, a little bit. I work for The Blaze. I work for a media company, and I've gotten in a few tiffs with Nikki Haley's staffers, and The Blaze wants to protect free speech, but there's the thing, the cancel culture, the mob, it does affect companies, it does affect production companies, it does affect Netflix. So yeah, it does kind of stink that I can set off somebody and I could potentially lose my job. I worry about that all the time. I'm not even saying this just because you're interviewing me about it.
Yeah,
I'm constantly under scrutiny for stuff that I don't even think that is that edgy. Like, for example, with Nikki Haley, with her status, I brought up that she supposedly had an affair with her wife, and affair on her husband while he was overseas. Now, this is kind of talked about. It's basically like an open, secret. And I almost lost my job for calling attention to this. So it is very scary, Gabriella, that, you talk about this stuff. And if there's one person with enough power or clout, you could be taken out like that.
Yeah, Stephen Merchant went on to say that it is so difficult for comedians right now because they might have to go back spending weeks justifying their jokes on social media. But let's look at another issue. Women's basketball superstar Caitlin Clark has signed a major sponsorship deal with Wilson. Now, the company will be releasing a collection of signed items, including limited edition basketballs. But what makes the Indiana Fever star so popular? Well, according to The View co-host Sunny Hostin, it's partly because she's white.
I do think that there is a thing called pretty privilege. There is a thing called white privilege. There is a thing called tall privilege. And we have to acknowledge that. Yeah. Now, Caitlin Clark is bringing this money, these sponsorships, we hope, into the league, and other players will benefit from it. But I do think that she is more relatable to more people because she's white, because she's attractive.
Alex, some insightful commentary on The View there?
Well, it's always a racist that makes everything about color of skin and gender. And it's kind of like DEI. Caitlin Clark was not a DEI choice. The reason why people like her is because she's a leading NCAA women's basketball scorer of all time. She's greatness. People love greatness here in America. We love comeback stories. We love underdogs, but people also love greatness. She's one of the greatest players. And, but Sunny Hostin does have a point. Now, Gabriella, you might not know this, but last year around the same time, I was one of the first people to talk to Brittany Griner when she, we traded her for the Merchant of Death. He was a guy that we traded with Putin, and it got Brittany Griner out of jail. And at the time, it was a very controversial thing because I saw her at the airport at, she was flying on a commercial plane. And what they said was at the time that they're going to give the women chartered flights because of this confrontation, but they never did. And then fast forward a year later, Caitlin Clark joins the league. She brings a huge amount of attention, and now they're getting chartered flights. So in a way, it did seem kind of, for me, I hate to say it, I don't think Kathy Engelbert, the chairman of the WNBA, the commissioner, I don't think that she's necessarily racist, but it does look bad for them that they wouldn't protect their black athletes, and now they're doing everything for Caitlin Clark. But it's not based on race. It's based on popularity because she's the best player. They want to make everything about race. If Caitlin Clark wasn't the best player, nobody would care. But of course, the host on The View has to make everything about race and has to just spread victimhood because that's the narrative that they love to preach and promote the most.
Well said. Let's chat about Hunter Biden. It's been revealed that Hunter Biden's abandoned laptop, which allegedly contains evidence of influence peddling and drug use, will take centre stage during his federal trial on gun charges. And just to recap, Hunter Biden was charged with illegally purchasing and possessing a gun, and he has pleaded not guilty and claims that he's being politically targeted. But Alex, can you just remind us what's allegedly on that hard drive and how this is going to play out for Hunter Biden?
Well, first of all, sadly, I don't think Hunter Biden is ever going to face any sort of the repercussions that are due for. Listen, Hunter Biden was leading Burisma, an energy company in the Ukraine, and now we're supporting a never-ending war in the Ukraine. Hunter Biden is connected with China, where potentially America is going to have to defend Taiwan against China. And if we can't beat the Taliban in a war, if we lost the Vietnam War, I'm really worried about fighting a war with China. So Hunter Biden is a despicable person, but I'm empathetic to him because he lost his mom at a young age. His drug abuse is the only thing that actually makes him likable. You know what I mean? A lot of people here in America, drugs are a huge issue. Everybody knows an uncle, a drunk uncle, or somebody that has substance abuse problems. That humanizes him. But what doesn't humanize him is the fact that his dad was benefiting from his power as vice president and using his son as a literal bag man, getting money from China, getting money from the Ukraine. So for me, if you just look into it, a lot of people are not willing to actually put in the time to look into Hunter Biden. But Hunter Biden is a criminal that has sold out the American people. I don't like him for that sense. The fact that he's had substance abuse issues, that kind of normalizes him. So I have this weird kind of dichotomy, love-hate relationship with Hunter Biden, is that I don't like what he did for our country. I don't like about how he used his dad for power. But I'm also empathetic because he's probably had a lot harder life than you would expect being the vice president's son and now the president's son.
Looking at the last presidential election in 2020, Facebook restricted the story from the New York Post about Hunter Biden's laptop, which allegedly contained emails that Joe Biden was helping his son's business dealings with Ukraine. Now that this laptop, that this hard drive is going to be used as evidence in a federal trial, how is this going to impact this election in November 5 when we're seeing Joe Biden and versus Donald Trump once again? Are we going to see big tech really try and restrict these types of stories again?
Well, 100%. You know, Gabriella, I'm not trying to kiss your derriere when you say this, but I really respect Sky News for covering this, because a lot of mainstream media companies here in America will not cover Hunter Biden fairly. And yes, during the 2020 election, there was 50 Department of Justice, CIA, FBI members that said that this was just Russian disinformation. That all proved to be false, and that they lied about it because they wanted to protect Joe Biden in the 2020 election. So I have no faith in the technocracy, all the tech companies that control the narrative, that can censor people if they speak out against it. And sadly, I really do think 2024 is going to be very similar to 2020. And, you know, it's not even about the laptop. We know the laptop is real, but they'll tell you that it's not. And that's what's so That's what's so maddening. That's what pisses me off, excuse my French, is that the government can just lie to us. And then when we catch them in that lie, they face no repercussions. We just have to move on and try to forget about it. It's really, we have a two-tier justice system, one for the elites and one for everybody else.
Let's look at what's happening on the campaign trail. President Joe Biden was in New Hampshire this week promoting his administration's veterans policy, sounding as eloquent as ever. Let's take a listen.
Let me close with this. After I signed the PACT Act into law.
Doesn't he sound great, Alex?
I mean, tell me this, Gabriella, what do the people of Australia think of Joe Biden? You know, whether you like Trump or not, at least he can speak. You know, I'm not even saying you guys have to love Donald Trump. Donald Trump's not perfect. But we have a president that is falling up the stairs, that can't you know, put out a coherent thought. There's rumors and speculations that he might be on some sort of performance enhancing pharmaceutical drugs to try to keep him awake. Like, it's almost a stain on the entire world, not the country, that this is the leader of the free world. So is Joe Biden popular in Australia? They have to think that he is the biggest joke ever. What do the people think in Australia of Joe Biden, if you don't mind me asking?
You know what? People who aren't fans of Donald Trump, I think they get really quiet when it comes to Joe Biden. But I think even if you are a Democrat supporter, you know that Joe Biden is just not the man for the top job, and they really need to see someone else. Because you can't keep looking at clips after this clip again and again. You know, it's just like, how much longer can he really be campaigning for?
And Gabriella, he said if you don't vote for him, you're not black. He said that to the black community. That is, if Donald Trump said that, they would throw him in jail. So, I mean, it's just ridiculous. You know, Joe Biden, at one point he was very sharp. At one point he was a good politician, or at least a smart politician, you know, knew how to do his job. At this point, it's like Weekend at Bernie's. They are just propping him up. He can barely walk. And I hate to say this, to me, it looks like elder abuse, because he doesn't want to be the president. He should be on a golf course. He should be at his beach house in Delaware. They shouldn't be parading him, you know, all across the country, basically just, you know, parading around a walking corpse, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, looking at the latest polls, President Joe Biden's approval rating has dropped to its lowest level in nearly 2 years. A recent Reuters Ipsos poll found that only 36% of Americans approve of his performance as president, which is down from 38% in April. So, look, Alex, where is this heading? We know that he is going to debate Donald Trump twice in the next couple of months, but where do you see this going?
Well, I'm kind of at the forefront of the politics in America. I mean, there are people that know more about politics than me, but I can just I talk to people. I go to a lot of protests. I speak to a lot of political influencers. I speak to a lot of politicians. What I think Donald Trump is a more popular candidate, but people are having political fatigue here in America. So I think there's going to be a record number of people that don't participate in this next election. Does that benefit Trump? Does that benefit Joe Biden? I don't know, but I'll just tell you this much. More so than 2016, 2020, people are like, I don't like either candidate. And I just would never, I would never have thought that I would see that. So people are sick and tired of it. People can't afford a home. And in America, there is no middle class. Literally, I'm just saying people are struggling to make ends meet. And that's the majority of people here in America. And it shouldn't be like that. We're the land of milk and honey, supposedly, but I don't see any of that milk. I don't see any of that honey. And so once again, I think that they can fortify an election. I hate to say this. I can't believe I'm saying this on Sky News. I think it's possible that Joe Biden wins again, and he's not even going to be the most popular president, in my opinion. He does not have the popularity level that Donald Trump has.
All the way from Dallas, Texas, comedian Alex Stein, thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour. Great to speak with you.
Thank you. And Gabriella, it's such an honor to be, on your show. Let me tell you something, and this is not a critique whatsoever. The best Sky News host, and this is no diss on you, Rita is the queen. I just want everybody to know I love Rita so much. She's helped me out so much, and I hope that you and I can become friends just like I have been with Rita. I love Rita. I love everybody at Sky News. Thank you so much for having me, Gabriella.
I think I love Rita Panahi even more. She absolutely is the queen of digital here at Sky News. Alex, great to speak with you.
Thank you. Have a good one.